Thank you so much for being here. It's been a journey. It's been a journey, right? And when you think of the word journey, some people think journey in a negative context is like it's a long road, right? Or it's an arduous project, or it's just, man, I don't want to go that road. It's just too hard. But a journey, we can. I think of the word visualize and reflection. So we can visualize a journey ahead, but we don't know for sure it's going to happen. But we can reflect on the journey behind. And when we reflect, we get to see the moments in our lives that meant something and impact us in some way, shape, or form. So I want to say thank you first for everybody being here. There's so many, there's everybody in here. I could point out a story or pick a story or something about you that's been so memorable to me that I could share. And there's stories in the book. How many people here have actually read the whole book so far? I know there's a few of you in here, And, in the book is when we talk about getting feedback and reviews, it's not about Rob wanting to hear what you had to say about the book or how good it might have been. I really want to know the impact that it's going to have on you, because I really believe that the book's going to impact. There's something in the book's going to impact everybody in here. It might be one story, one sentence, but everybody in here can get something out of that book. And I wrote it for an audience of one to share with you. That's how I wrote that book. So I want to say thanks, first of all, to my mom and dad. So if you don't know, I'm one of 7 kids. We grew up in a 2-bedroom house, 745 square feet. My mom used to have long red hair, and my father's from Italy, but we called her the wacky redhead and the Latin lover. So many memories in that 745 square foot house. So I thank you, Mom and Dad. Okay. And I'm just looking around the room, and there's just so many stories that are going on in my head right now, And of course, I got to thank my lovely wife, Debbie. And my children. Oh, there's Amanda. And Crystal, Robbie, and Amanda. I want to thank you guys. They put up with a lot of stuff over the years, a lot of stuff. God, I want to pick out some people, but I don't want to leave anybody out, But I got to point out a few others. So there's a guy in the back. He came tonight, and I didn't know if he was coming or not. And we met 19 years ago. 19 years ago, we were at an event, and we kept bumping into each other, him and his wife. And I said, it was a real estate conference. And I'm like, I run into this guy in the elevator. I run into him at the conference. I run into him at lunch. I run into him at the gym. I'm like, I got to connect with this guy. So eventually we connected. Mr. Rob Foy and Anne-Marie Foy, stand up for a second. Just stand up for a second. These guys, they've been on this journey like the whole time. I know I'm 52, but the last 19 years, them two been on this journey with me. And when I showed up tonight, I almost got emotional because it means the world for you two to be here. Thank you so much. Thank you. So Mark, Pete, Mark, we've been getting together, as Mark had said, it's been 8 years total now. Every other Friday, we spend 2 hours from 6:30 to 8:30 in the morning talking about business, talking about life, and talking about how we can be better, right? What do we have to do to work to be better? How do we be the best versions of ourselves? And there's some pretty conversations, and there's some ugly conversations, And it was 2016, December 2016, and I've been dilly-dallying around with this book for umpteen years, if you will. And with these guys, I've been telling them since 2011 that I was going to write a book. And if you don't mind, I'm going to use a cuss word here. We were sitting there, and we were talking about wins and losses. And it was my turn to talk about our losses for the year. And I'm sitting there with the 3 of the guys, and I said, as you know, I haven't written a book yet. And I didn't even get the sentence completed yet. And Pete looks at me and goes, whoa, Rob. He goes, you're either lying to us or you're full of shit. And I'm ready. He's in my house telling me I'm a liar and I'm Italian. I want to jump across the table and take him out. Before I could do that, though, the next guy, Mark, goes, Rob, he's right. So now it's 2 against 1. I still think I could take him. And I look at Mark, and he just puts his hands in his air. He goes, "What do you want me to say?" So I committed January 1st of 2017 to get up every morning at 4 a.m. and write for 45 minutes to an hour. And no matter where I was in my thoughts, I stopped, and I had to write a continuing thought so I wouldn't forget where I was the next day. But it happened from January 1st to June 23rd of 2017. It all came together. Okay. So now I'm going to backtrack a little bit. 2 years ago, you heard me say we had a book done. Remember whoever's at my 50th party? You know, I had a book done, and I had a title, and I couldn't wait for it to be published. That was 2 years and 4 months ago. So, you may have heard me say this, I had this manuscript, 250 some pages, and I handed it to an editor, and I thought it was done. I thought my stuff was pretty good. And I handed it to an editor. 2 weeks later, it came back to me. And you know, the paper was black and white when I turned it in. When I got it back, it was red, black and white. And there was more red than black and white. So I had to learn the hard way. But so after 14 edits, back and forth, it finally came to fruition. So that was 2 years ago. We had a different title, Pathway to Peace. So I had a guy, put it in front of a guy, and he said to me, he goes, "Rob," he goes, "you need to work through this. You got too much going on here. You're a little long-winded, as you may know. Some of you can attest to. I had 82,000 words. Cut it down to 70,000 words. That's a lot for me. Anyway, so you know, we had all. He said to me, "Rob," he goes, "your title's going to change, and the framework of the book is going to change." And I was like, "You don't know what you're talking about." Sure enough, 2 years later, the title changed and the framework of the book changed. You know, so it's been a nice ride. So I want to tell you, I'm going to give you a little synopsis of how the book came into play. Okay, you guys bored yet? You got another 15 minutes in you? Okay. So it was, and a lot of you guys know these stories, some of these stories, but it was 1990. I graduated from college, and I had a 1978 LTD2, and I was driving 45 minutes to work each way, and I had no air conditioning, vinyl seats, and an 8-track player. So I played AC/DC for those about to rock every day. I knew every song on that tape. But anyway, so it was 1990, and I'm working at this place. It's called Hibbert Brown. It's a penny stock firm. So I didn't know what I was getting into, but it was a penny stock firm. And there was this guy. He was from Cuba. He was 1 year removed from Cuba, and he was hitting it full steam. And I walked in one morning. I was the first one in because with that 1978 LTD2, I wore shorts to work because I sweat before I got there, and then I changed when I got there. So I was the first one in every morning. But I get in there one morning, and I look over in the cubicle next to me, and there's a book, The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. I'd never sold anything in my life. I said, I need to read this book and learn how to sell. So I picked up the book, I went home that night, and I read the whole book. The next day I went to Barnes & Nobles and I bought every one of Og Mandino's books. And then, so from that point on, I just became an avid reader. And I read and I read and I read. So I guess you could say for the next 10 years I read, you know, every day, I don't know, an hour or two, I just read. And I became a student of life, a student of this game, this personal growth thing. And then so I came home and I got into real estate. And it was funny, before I got in real estate, I was working at T. Rowe Price. And I did a couple little seminars, and somebody came up to me and said, hey, you should join Toastmasters, or you know, get involved in Toastmasters. But before that, I was doing a video, a presentation for Curly. I did an event for Curly, and I had my wife tape it. Remember that, hon? You taped that? And what happened that night, I want to go back and forth here. I got asked to do this event. There's 750 people, right? And I'd never spoken in front of a crowd like that before. And the principal, he calls me up and he goes, hey, Rob, can you speak to the crowd? And I said, yeah. And I said, how many people is it? 750. I'm like, I can do it. And he had never heard me spoke before. I just got referred to him. So we go to Curly that night, and we have dinner with the priests, the teachers, you know, all the people that worked at Curly. And we're eating, and the principal says, hey, Rob, you want to go over to the auditorium and check out the lights, check out the stage, check out the sound system? And I'm like, sure, let's go. So we go over there, and it's Debbie, myself, and Barry. And we're walking around, and he looks at me, and he says, Rob, he says, so, is this potentially the largest crowd you've ever spoken in front of? I looked at Debbie, And I looked at Barry, and I said, Barry, this is the only crowd I've ever spoken in front of. So we knocked it out, 11 minutes presentation, and we filmed it. So I take it to this guy who's into speaking and presenting, and I said, I just want your constructive criticism. Give it to me as honest as you can give it to me. And he watched the video, and I saw him one day, and he says, join Toastmasters. And I'm like, well, you're saying that for two reasons. You're either saying, I'm that bad and I need help, or you got a shot, right? So I took it as I got a shot. So that's when I started thinking, that book I read in 1990, Og Mandino's Greatest Salesman in the World, he had a follow-up book to that, The Greatest Salesman in the World Part 2. And in that book, he talked about being the wealthy and have all the riches of the world, and he talked about giving them away. But in the process of giving away, he talked about being the greatest orator of his time. And he just wanted to speak and impact and inspire people. And that's when the ball started to turn in my head. I'm like, I would love to do that one day. I was piss poor, but I would love to do that one day, right? So I'm like, let's make this happen. So that's when I really got into reading. So in 2001, I wrote the goal. I mean, in 2001, I had the idea of writing a book. 2005, I wrote the goal. I'm going to write a book. And I wrote one chapter in 2005. One chapter. So you can say this is a 15-year project. 2009, I wrote another chapter. And in between all that and along the way, I had some insecurities. I wasn't worthy enough. I wasn't good enough. Who's going to read my stuff? Who's it going to impact? Who's it going to help? And you start asking yourself those questions. And I had them, and I would put them down. I put the book down. I can't do this. So it was 2014. I picked it back up. I wrote 2 chapters. So from 2005 to 2014, 9 years, 4 chapters. Good pace, right? So then I was at a meeting, and it was a real estate office, and I was leading the meeting. We were talking about goals, setting goals. And I said, well, my goal in 2014, my big goal in 2014 is to write a book. And a lady sitting in the back, she raises her hand. And I didn't know her from Adam. And I said, can I help you? She goes, I'm going to help you write your book. I'm like, who are you? She goes, well, my husband and I own a publishing and editing company, and you've inspired me here today, and I just want to help you. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. So we got together a few times, and they told me some things to do. So what happened, here's the evolution of it. So I started out writing 25 one-word chapter titles, and then I condensed it to 16. I had a whiteboard in my home office, probably, about as big as that. And so I wrote 16 chapter titles. And then I started thinking, okay, how am I going to do this? How am I going to fill these pages in? So after these 16 chapter titles, and this is what's important for all of you here, I'm looking at the words, whether it's transparency, humility, awareness, acceptance, love, abundance, unconditional love, and I'm looking at these one-word chapter titles, and like, what are the stories in my life that fall under each one of these chapter titles? What are the stories? Is it the Amanda story? Is it the Robbie story? Is it the skiing story? Is it the basketball story? What's the title of the story? So I say that because everyone in this room, we have stories. But do we reflect on those stories? Do we remember those stories? Because these stories, they come at us and they go. And then we forget about them. So I had all these stories. I was looking at, before I left to come up here today, I'm looking at all the stories on the board because I'm afraid to erase it. It means so much to me, I don't want to erase this board. And there's like 60 stories on this board. And I can't have that many stories. So anyway, but I'm looking at the stories, and now I'm saying to myself, okay, now how do I fill in the pages after that? So I would get up every morning, I would look at the board, and I would just reflect. I would look at the story, the Amanda story, and what is it about the Amanda and the skiing story that I could share with people that's going to impact them? And then I'd write for 45 minutes. And then the next morning I'd get up again and I'd say a little prayer. What do I write today? What do I write today? What do I write today? And I let the words come. They just came and they came and they came and they came. And obviously they weren't good enough because there was so much red in that first manuscript, right? But they just came. So now I had to put it all together. So after 14 edits, here we are, right? But now, here's the hard part. I had to pick a title. Right? And I had that Pathway to Peace title, but we knew that was going away. And I was arguing back and forth with the editor. She goes, it's got to mean this, it's got to mean that, it's got to look like this. And I had like 40-some titles on paper that we were looking at. And so I didn't like any of them 100%. So one morning, I'm sitting there in that chair again, and I'm looking at my whiteboard, and I'm looking at all these chapter titles, and I'm looking at all these stories, and it hit me. It hit me. And I'm looking, I'm like, son of a gun. I said, my life is better than I thought. And I'm like, better than you think. That's what it's going to be. Our lives are better than we think. You know, just they're better than we think. Now look, we all been through hardships, tragedies. We all been to the top. We've been to the bottom and everywhere in between. You know, but we talk about good experiences and bad experiences, right? And when you think about the bad experiences, if you are aware enough to take the lessons out of those bad experiences, now they become a good experience. So the book is about awareness and developing awareness to live a more fulfilling life. Anybody here not ever experienced joy in your life? Anybody never experienced it? I doubt it, right? We've all experienced it at some point, maybe the birth of your child, graduation of a kid, a job, an accomplishment, whatever it is. We've all experienced it. But you didn't go get that joy, did you? You didn't go grasp it and say, come to me, joy. It came to you. Joy comes to you in the moment. And the powerful word in that sentence there is the moment. Because we all have moments in our lives. We have experiences in our lives. And the question is, do we grasp them when they come, or do we let them go by? What do we do at that moment? What do we do? And sometimes we catch it, and sometimes we don't even know it's there. But then if you sit back and you take this file of stories and you journal it, or you write it out, or you put it up on a board somewhere, and you start thinking about all the stories in your life, you're going to realize there's some good stuff going on. There's been some tough stuff, but there's some really good stuff going on. And it's about taking that, call it the proverbial silver lining out of it, and learning from that. So with the book, there's 16 chapters. There's some of you have seen it, some of you haven't. But there's questions in every chapter. And the questions are meant for you to think. The questions are meant for you to reflect. Reflect on your lives. Reflect on the goodness that you have. Reflect on those joyful moments that you've had. And then you can let that joy like warm your heart. Because what better feeling is it when something, how many people have kids here? Right? And when your kid does something when you least expect it, don't you have like that warm feeling in your heart? Or maybe you've told them something a million times, they've never done it, and all of a sudden they did it out of the blue, and you're like, they got it. They got it. And that might bring joy to your heart in that minute, right? So we got to be aware of those moments. You got to be aware of it. And what are you doing to be aware of those moments? Are you taking the quiet time to reflect? You know, are you doing that? So that day that the title came to my mind, that was the gift. That was the only gift I needed in that moment. Because I'm sitting there thinking, I chase life, man. I go at it hard, and I'm running all the time. And I took a step back, and I'm like, wow, it's better than I think, right? And I'm like, how cool is that? And in that moment, I'm like, if I don't sell a book, I got my gift. It was right there in front of me. And a few things have happened along the way that I know, like, call it godlike things, call it universal things, they're happening. And it's really call it weird, but it's supposed to happen. And I'll share two quick stories with you. So I was just telling Debbie and the kids this morning, or this afternoon before we came here, yesterday morning I gave a presentation at BNI, and I was talking about the power of moments. And there's another book, and I'm not promoting that book, I'm promoting my book. Anyway, but I had read this book, Power of Moments, years ago. And we talked about that yesterday at our networking meeting. And I'm like, man, it's better than you think, developing awareness to live a more fulfilling life. And really it's about the moments that we experience. And I go on Amazon today, and I just click on my book, and sometimes you have your book or a book that you want to purchase, and below it'll say, those who bought this book are also buying this book. So it's 4 o'clock today, I'm on the computer, I'm on Amazon, and I hit my book, and I scroll down, said the people that are buying your book are also buying this book, The Power of Moments. And I was like, holy cow, you know? I mean, if that's the universe working in your behalf, I don't know, but it just made me think. And so there's other stories, there's can I? Crystal's my daughter here. It's 35 years old. I was 17 when I became a dad. And we reunited at age 10. She was age 10, I was 27. And so I assumed Mom told her everything, and I assumed that she had any questions she would ask me. And so everything was cool. You know, we get along, we do this, we do that, you know, and do whatever, you know, and we just living our lives. And then I asked her, I said, can I tell our story in the book? And she said, yes. And then I asked her, I said, would you like to read it before I print it? She said, no. So she either trust me or she was scared to death. So the first night the boxes came, and I had Crystal and Amanda and Debbie there, and we had Robbie on a laptop on FaceTime. And so we opened up the box, and you know, it was just a really cool moment. And he gave Crystal a book that night. So it was about 3 nights later, I think. 3 nights later, we're on the phone with each other, and we're talking, whatever. She goes, I've read 70 pages. I'm up to page 71 of the book. I'm like, and? She goes, and I skipped to my part. And I said, and? And she goes, I'm a mess. I'm an emotional mess right now. And I said, why? Talk to me. And she said, I really appreciate the way you wrote it. You were respectful in it. She goes, but you opened my eyes up to things I didn't know. And I'm like, holy cow. You know, shame on me for not asking this young girl if she had questions. And she said, I'm mad at myself for not asking you questions. And I said, Crystal, I said, we just got a gift. You and I just got a gift right here and now. And she goes, what do you mean? I said, again, if I don't sell a book, I said, the fact that you have questions now, and I want to talk to you, and I want to answer those questions, I said, that means our relationship is going to get stronger. It's going to grow deeper. And I said, if that doesn't happen, if that book doesn't happen, and you don't have that conversation right now, our relationship may never grow as deep as it's going to grow. And then I threw an unintentional pun out, and I said, Crystal, I'm here to tell you, we got the gift, and I'm going to promise you that our relationship is going to be better than you think. And 2 weeks later, it's about 2 weeks, wasn't it? 2 weeks later, Crystal came over, and we sat in my basement for 2 hours, and we talked. And she asked me questions, and I answered them. And now our relationship's going to go to another level. And if that ain't a gift, what is? Right? Thank you. So I'm going to finish with this. Or should I finish with that? Why are we not more aware of what's going on in our lives? Why are we not more aware of it? We got distractions going on, we're chasing this, we're chasing that, or we're just looking at the problem. We're just looking at what's right in front of us, right? And we're not seeing in depth what's behind what's in front of us. Was everybody guilty of just looking at what's in front of you? When everybody said, I'm guilty of it. I'd say everybody in this room is probably guilty, right? Anybody see the movie Patch Adams? Who's seen the movie Patch Adams? That many people have not seen it? Oh my God, you got to watch this movie. You got to watch this movie, Patch Adams. So Patch Adams, Robin Williams is Patch. And there's this crazy guy, Dr. Mendelsohn, I think his name is. And they're in this psych ward. And Dr. Mendelsohn's walking around to everybody, and he's going, what do you see? What do you see? What do you see? And everybody's like, 4 fingers. I see 4. He goes, you're crazy. You don't see it. You don't get it. You just don't get it. And he walks up there, what do you see? 4 fingers. And he'd get mad and upset, and nobody would get it. But Robin Williams was sitting there, or Patch was sitting there, and his mind was spinning. His wheels were turning. So one night, Dr. Mendelsohn is in his office, and he's writing out this like algebraic equation or whatever. And Patch Adams walks in the door. And the cup, he's got a cup of coffee or tea or whatever, and it's leaking. So Patch takes a Band-Aid, and he seals the cup. And he looks up, he goes, how can I help you, Patch? And he goes, I want to know about the 4 fingers. So he takes his hand, he goes, Patch, he goes, look at your 4 fingers. And what I like everybody to do is take your right hand, if you're left-handed, and put your 4 fingers in front of your eyes, right in front of your eyes, eye level. Don't look down, look eye level. And look at the 4 fingers, and you see 4 fingers, right? Now look through the 4 fingers. Look through the fingers. Do you get somewhat double vision? And you might see 8. That's awareness right there. That's a form of awareness. So my point is, whether it's a story, whether it's a movie, whether it's a relationship, no matter what it is, don't look at what's in front of you. Look beyond it. Look beyond it. Look into the depths of what's in front of you. And think about what's there. Think about that relationship. And Mendelsohn says, he says, see what no one else sees for fear and conformity. See the world anew each and every day. When you look through those four fingers and you see through it and you see everything in a different light, your awareness just goes to another level. So my encouragement to you is see your life differently. See it differently. See it like no one else sees it. See it anew each and every day, and let yourselves live the life you're supposed to live and be the best version of yourself. I really appreciate every one of you being here. I went a little longer than I thought I was going to go. I'm sweating my rear end off here, And I love all of you, man. I wish I could have more people here, but I love every one of you. And buy the book, read the book, do the review, and it's not for me, because the more reviews you do, the more it gets promoted and more people get impacted. And that's my goal. I want to impact and inspire people to live the best they can live. So I appreciate that. And if you want to do a chant, go ahead, Mark. Thank you guys so much. I love you. Thank you.